All right, folks, welcome back to Local Edge Radio with Blake and Lesley here on 880 The Revolution. We've been spending some time with Tim and Bernard from the local Tea Party organization, the Asheville Tea Party organization, and we've been talking about a variety of issues and a lot of perceptions that are out there about the Tea Party movement, and you guys have given us some insight that locally you guys don't necessarily agree with some of the movement being hijacked by Freedom Works, the Republican Party, and some of these other folks that are trying to get involved, that you guys want to stand alone for what you believe in, and you're going to protest accordingly and respectfully. And we've always encouraged folks from a local perspective to come on our show and let us know what you're all about, and it's nice we're getting some insight.
I mean, it seems like a lot of people want good government. They want better government. They just don't necessarily have the tools or the understanding to know how to start, how to begin. And I just want to say this. You know, if the movement started right now and is focusing on like right now and what's wrong right now without an understanding of how we got here, and you know, Bernard, you referred back to 1913, and we can go way back in history to find a thread of problems and issues. I'll say we've come a long way since 1913 with, you know, voters' rights and civil rights and child labor and a lot of other issues that were addressed. But if you maintain sort of keep the blinders on with an ignorance of what came before, and you focus entirely on the current administration, the current Congress, I think you're missing the systemic problems that we as a society need to address to preserve our democracy.
Well, I think the issue isn't focusing on the current Congress so much as the actions currently versus the actions in the past. I mean, the fact is if we want change, then we have to do it in accordance with our actions, not with our speeches.
But do you agree that we need to make change in the context of, you know, our current governmental structure? I mean,
I'm not saying to abolish government.
Yeah,
I mean, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I want to respond to that. And this also follows up on something that was said on the show yesterday. And that is that the Tea Party is not anti-government.
Right.
Okay, we do not advocate anarchy or no government. There is a proper role for government, and that proper role, in my view, is the protection of individual rights. That requires things like police, fire, courts, the military.
And
so, yes, I agree. We do need good government, but that's my definition.
Good government meaning uncorrupted government that actually is constitutionally limited. Government that obeys the law.
What about the FDA? What about regulation on monopolies and in some cases duopolies? What about antitrust? You know, where does that fall under the Tea Party platform?
Well, the Tea Party doesn't have a platform. It's a set of values that were stirred up, you know, because of the financial overreach and out of control government. So there's not really an official position on some of these marginal issues. I can give you my point of view. It's not necessarily a Tea Party point of view, but I do not believe in antitrust laws. I believe that only government can create monopolies, and that is what government is. Government is a monopoly. And private businesses who enjoy monopolies are enjoying monopoly because of the largesse of government legislation that protects them from competition and is perpetrating an unfree market.
So what part of your life do you want government out of, Tim? Because a lot of what we've heard in these protests is get out of our lives. Too much government intervention is bad. Although you just hit the nail on the head. We expect the government to be there when a disaster occurs. We expect the police to be there.
I expect government to fulfill its proper role.
At each
which
level,
is a
too.
limited
That's another
role.
issue.
It's limited to the protection of individual rights.
For example, I mean, with regard to jurisdiction, I mean, you know, the idea is from what I understand it, the founder set up is that different governments at different levels have different roles. For example, it was never supposed to be the role of the federal government to be involved with road building or public education, for example. However, they're involved in it. So, you know, the way I see it is that, again, how does the government get its power? It gets its power according to the laws, the Constitution. We give it certain powers, and that's how it becomes limited. However, over time, this federal government has grown into nearly all powerful centralized government. And what I believe a lot of people within the Tea Party movement and other liberty-minded movements seem to be, enough with this big government stuff. Let's bring it back home a little bit. A lot of these issues that the federal government's dealing with should not be dealt with at the federal level and can be dealt with at the state or more local levels.
But
So for example, let me throw out an example. Okay, if you don't like the public education laws in one state, you have the option to move to another. And, or let's say the drug legislation in one state, you have the option to move to another. However, the way things are now, you got, a few people deciding just about everything. I mean, how much is the federal government not involved in your life? Think about that for a little while. Where can you go? You got to leave the country? I mean, I'm an American. I want to stay in America. I have, my rights. I have rights that aren't derived from a government or from a piece of paper. And with allowing a federal government to get so out of control, then what do? You're kind of locked into this thing where, again, 9 people decide in a courtroom all these sorts of things, and we have to abide by that everywhere in this country because these 9 people say it's so. I make jokes all the time. They're like the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings, the 9.
So you're in a sense, you're talking about federalism, decentralizing government so that we might have a more socialist South Carolina and a more libertarian North Carolina and a more so you're not saying there should be a heterogeneous government throughout the country, but we should be able to pick and choose our ideologies based on what state we live in.
Depending on the issue, sure, yeah.